Long range, the Summer's Dream Mayday call came from about 2,000 kilometres away, between the Fijian islands of Tavanui and Nagamia.
We picked up their Mayday about 1 o'clock. Coastal Patrol picked it up first, but we seem to have a better signal here due to skip. A skip is when the ionosphere passes a message further than it should. No one else is picking them up in the Pacific at all, except for broken calls. So, as far as we're concerned, we're their lifeline at the moment.
Battling poor radio reception at times, the Coast Guard has contacted both Fijian and Australian rescue authorities to alert them of the boat's predicament, adrift in a dangerous channel.
The guy on the boat is getting really worried because it's beginning to get dark, and I think he's getting a little bit panicky. And the radio reception is dropping off. It's very bad at the moment.
It's not quite the Melbourne Cup, or even in the same league, but punters who turn up for the Dr. Jerd's Jungle Juice Cup are always in for a unique racing experience. This year, the Cup received its biggest crowd, clearing the 6,000 people mark. Maybe it's the horses that attracted the crowds, or maybe the famous drink.
They say if you've got the flu, you'll get over it in one day if you have a glass of this. It's very, very strong.
But there were a few who came to see some riding. And somewhere on the track were the races. The traditional race is now so popular that it's become an unofficial half-day holiday. But in years to come, it may not be so unofficial.
Today, and there's a very strong chance it'll be a half-day holiday here in the town next year for the Jungle Juice Cup.
And to the main race of the day, Harley's tip was Shannon Magic. Patra's Reply paid $11.10 on the nose. I Dominate came in second with Shannon Magic running in at $1.10. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Neighbours in Luana Crescent saw the flames at about 10:30 p.m. and did what they could to save the Windale house.
Jumped over the fence and grabbed those and started putting it out.
A woman and her family lived in the home. They have almost nothing left. The only part of the house which can be salvaged was behind a closed door, which stopped the spread of the fire into one bedroom.
Inside of the place is completely destroyed by fire. This fire has been caused by an electric blanket being left on.
The fire brigade says the blanket was unattended for 6 hours while the family was out. Smoke detectors were installed in the house, but there was no one there to act on the alarm. With the family's memories destroyed, the fire brigade could only salvage a simple warning.
Electric blankets, as I said, should not be left on all day. They should only warm the bed up and then turned off when you get into bed.
Meanwhile in Wickham, police are investigating an arson attack on a smashed repair workshop in Church Street.
If the trend in recent home invasions is anything to go by, the elderly are being picked out as easy targets.
We've had 3 home invasions in the Port Stephens area in the last 3 to 4 weeks.
But Lower Hunter police believe that forewarned is forearmed and are sending out the message that the elderly should always keep their home locked and secure.
Really have a look at your home security, like a good strong security door, a screen door, outside lighting at the porch where you might be able to look through a peephole to see who is knocking on your door before you open it. Have a safety chain attached.
And from the past few home invasions, police have released a computer-generated picture of a suspect who threatened a resident and took less than $10. But police still believe that the invasions are a search for cash.
The indicators would be that the offenders are looking for money or valuables, which, to flow on from that, it's an easy source of cash.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
"18-year-old Scott Armstrong was behind the wheel when the tragic accident occurred last November, killing his 24-year-old sister Kim instantly. The pair had been out on the town in Newcastle and after failing to find a cab, decided to head home to Thornton after a brief nap in the car. In Newcastle District Court today, sentencing submissions got underway after the 18-year-old pleaded guilty to culpable driving causing death and being under the influence of alcohol. The breath test on November 14 in the high range category. Watched on by dozens of his friends and relatives in court today, the teenager took the stand, admitting he wished he could have taken things back on the night of the accident and changed everything. In evidence, he said his sister Kim was special and I've just let everyone down. Scott's mother Anne also took the stand. During her emotional testimony, she said, "We've all suffered here, every one of us. It was a bad decision the kids made on that night, but we can't take it back now. Hopefully we can all get through this." The charge attracts a maximum jail term of 10 years. Armstrong's barrister has called for periodic detention. Judge Coulahan will hand down his sentence on Wednesday. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
Six new microfiche machines and dozens of roll of microfilm of the records of the state's births, deaths and marriages have been added to the Masonic Village facilities. And already they've proved very popular with the residents, some of whom have traced their ancestry back to the First Fleet.
And most people can find one, sometimes you can find more. But they like it, they love it, it's interesting.
According to Mrs. Watt, it's more than just finding out where you came from.
Because it's historical, they're learning history at the same time.
And once people start to research their ancestry in the genealogy lab...
They call it the genie bug. Once it bites you, you suffer from it lifelong.
And the equipment isn't just for the residents, but instead for anyone wishing to trace their ancestors. The records trace births from 1788 through to 1919, or deaths and marriages up till 1945. Adam Harper, NBN News.
It's a fine line for referees in today's game whether to send a player off or not. We certainly don't want referees sending players off left, right and centre, but it seems they're so used to going to the video referee or just placing a player on report that they actually find it tough to make their own decisions. Now granted, it's a tremendously tough job, but out of 161 games this year, only 7 players have been sent off, and out of that, only 4 were actually suspended, compared to 48 players who were banned after being put on report during a game. Now, the judiciary's findings vindicate that those 48 players could have been sent off, particularly when the referee has a good view of the incident like the ones concerning Adam McDougall. Now to the tale of two champions. Laurie Daly ushered out of Bruce Stadium like a king with a tremendous victory, with Brett Mullins and Dave Ferner by his side. Andrew Enninghausen, meanwhile, tore his hamstring last weekend and at this stage may not have the same opportunity to bid his fans farewell at his home ground. He deserves much better than that. Now, round 24, first up, tonight's game between the Knights and the Sharks. The Sharks have a few players out with E.T., Treaster, Long and McKenna, but the Knights have a good record at home against the Sharks, who have only won one game at Marathon Stadium, and that was 5 years ago. The Eels and the Raiders, and some people are suggesting that the Raiders are hungover from last week's victory. Parramatta is without Smith and Wagon, but have a good defensive record, and Canberra really do struggle to win away, but I've picked the Raiders. Here's my tips for the rest of the round. Warriors over the Cowboys, Storm over the Eagles, Broncos, Roosters and the Tigers to win their games. Good luck with your tips. Back to you, Rabs.
Getting people to the games will be a challenge. Olympic ticket holders ride free, and most will come from Sydney, but the regions shouldn't suffer.
There'll be extra trains from Newcastle, Wyong and also Gosford stations. They will be the key stations for intercity services running into Sydney. Those trains, most of which will stop at Concord West, which is the nearest station to Olympic Park.
Starting from September 13, services from Newcastle to Sydney will increase from 42 to 63. 78 trains will run from Wyong, up from 47, and Gosford will have an extra 36 trains, leaving its platform for Sydney each day. The Olympic timetable will run for 19 days, and the aim is to get people to leave their cars behind. To help, the Olympic Road and Transport Authority will be setting land aside for parking near rail stations.
The Olympic Roads and Transport Authority is currently negotiating the arrangement of a couple of park and ride sites. They'll be brought into use during 19 days over the Olympic period to get people out of their cars, get them onto the trains.
People in the Upper Hunter won't be forgotten either. Extra buses will take them to the Olympics.
This notice board shows just how appealing motorbikes have become to thieves. All these bikes were stolen within the past few months. Most recently, brothers Daniel and Troy Melksham and a friend of theirs had all their bikes stolen from the one shed on Saturday night.
Part of our lifestyle now, that's just been taken away. Had a lot of fun times on the bikes and that, and it's just come to an end.
Motorbikes, tools and riding gear worth nearly $30,000 was taken from the shed, but not without great effort. The shed had been locked, the bikes chained, and one even had a steering lock. But they all proved no match for Saturday's thieves.
Like it's been planned, they've sussed out the situation, they've known what we've got, and they've just come back and done it one night.
The bikes were all XR400s, a 98, 99 and 2000 model, all very popular bikes. And local motorcycle dealer Graham Boyd says that you can't make too many precautions in securing a bike.
Lock shed, chain the bike up, and not using a normal chain. I would use one of the multi-stranded cable ones where a bolt cutter won't cut it, it only squashes the strands.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
It depends on who you talk to, but there's been plenty of reaction to the proposal tabled by the Northern New South Wales Soccer Federation to Soccer Australia at the weekend. The Federation say it was merely a plan to keep an NSL club in Newcastle should True Blue fail to meet Soccer Australia's criteria to run a club for next season. But the Breakers believe it's far more sinister than that and want the Federation to clear the air.
We're just a little bit bewildered that if that's the case, because under the Constitution we know that Northern New South Wales is to support the incumbent national team in the competition.
The outcome of a requested meeting between True Blue's major shareholder John Palmer and Soccer Australia on Thursday is now much anticipated.
Yes, you're quite right. Yes, we are sweating on the meeting. It is frustrating.
However, the soccer club simply continues to prepare for the coming season with gusto. Coach Lee Sterry has organised a new 4-team pre-season championship that will involve the Northern Spirit, Sydney Olympic and Marconi. The round-robin style competition will be played at Breakers Stadium and Gosford's North Power Stadium. And while the coach has already had a busy off-season in recruiting players, he's used it to forge a partnership of a different kind. During his recent trip to America, the Breakers mentor tied the knot with his partner Dana.
The shocking head-on collision occurred just north of Raymond Terrace on a wet Sunday evening late on the 15th of March 1998. Then 26 years old Jason Hall lost control of his Suzuki Swift, and moments later a crash claimed the life of his front seat passenger and girlfriend, 20-year-old Kimberly Gilchrist. Today in Newcastle District Court, the Sydney man pleaded not guilty to one count of dangerous driving occasioning death. In opening submissions, the Crown alleged the accident happened because Hoare overtook other vehicles in a situation where it was unsafe to do so, and that he failed to keep a proper lookout for vehicles. The charge can attract a maximum jail term of 10 years. Evidence continues tomorrow. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
There were some old faces at Knights training today, but none happier to be back than Ben Kennedy, the Blues back rower, to make his return from an ankle injury this weekend. But he's the first to admit he's far from 100%.
Gone and got advice off 2 doctors and they said basically give it a go. You know, obviously I need a couple of painkillers to run around and play.
Missing since the Origin series and with the finals fast approaching, Kennedy's assessment of his situation is as frank as his play.
I would either sit on my arse and not play again this year or give it a go. So, you know, I'd rather be out there giving it a go.
And give it a go he will, albeit in First Division against Western Suburbs, a far cry from the heady heights of State of Origin, which was the last time he played.
I just hope to get through the game and I'll be very happy.
And he'll have fair company in the game, former Blues winger Darren Albert back in the lower grade lineup as well. As for first grade, neither Mark Hughes nor Matt Parsons trained today due to illness, but both are considered certain starters for Sunday's match against the Tigers. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
After years of uncertainty, it appears the Hunter may have finally turned the corner on the employment front. Hunter Valley Research Foundation figures for the June quarter released today point to labour force participation rates at historically high levels. 40,000 jobs were created in the Hunter between last August and May this year, the unemployment rate falling to around 8% or 4.5 percentage points. It all comes after a decade of restructuring throughout the Hunter.
All that is finally paying off. We've not only come through that really rough period, but we've come through it a much more robust, a much more diverse and certainly a more prosperous economy.
Much of the investment and jobs growth has happened in the construction industry, while tourism has also been a mainstay.
Tourism in the Hunter, I think, has been a mainstay of the regional economy since the 91 recession. I think we've really seen it underpin economic activity throughout the 90s decade.
On consumption, key indicators like new car sales are down, as are retail sales. As for the next 12 months, it'll be steady as she goes, despite the GST.
Yes, we're going to see a levelling off, but I really can't see a downturn in this year or next.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
A body, a hidden murder weapon and a group of university students hot on the trail of a killer. To make this scene as realistic as possible, the group of 12 students, the first in the university's forensic science course, are scouring bushland, looking for physical evidence that's been planted to help them solve this mock mystery.
They've got to decide how to collect the evidence, what's good evidence, what's bad evidence. They've got to sift through that evidence, they've got to analyse it. And in the analysis, they've got to make sure that the quality control is there.
The suspect has been narrowed down to a member of staff from the Department of Chemistry and Biology, and the aim is to link the evidence found today to a person and therefore solve the crime.
We can gather that trace evidence, look after it properly, analyse it. We should be able to pin that particular evidence onto an individual.
But it's not fun and games, it's the next lesson for students.
So the limitations of the analysis are crucial. We actually want the students to make a bit of a mistake today so they can actually see some of the difficulties out there.
The entire event has been videotaped and will be used in a mock trial later this year. Brooke Webster, NBN News.
Over 4 years, Alan Davies has led the fight against the Mine Workers Union for individual contracts at Rio Tinto's Hunter Valley mines. The company has already offered a $5,000 wage rise and a one-off payment of $4,500 in return for a 42-hour week from workers at Mount Thorley Colliery. The union says the resignation of Alan Davies should facilitate similar offers being negotiated at the Hunter Valley and Howick mines without the union being bypassed. In other union news, Gary Kennedy, the state president of the Communications, Electrical and Plumbing Union, has been announced as the incoming head of the Trades Hall Council in Newcastle. Peter Barrack will retire in a month, and Gary Kennedy sees the recruitment of the young to the union movement as his greatest challenge in the face of Peter Reith's new industrial relations landscape.
We are a good and cheap insurance policy for the youth. That's the position we should project to the youth. And like I said, we've got some ideas and we'll work with that in the very near future.
All along a crowded Sydney harbour waterfront, lavish properties sell for a large fortune. Apartments hardly sell for less than $1 million. Now, new units being built to capitalise on views along Newcastle's foreshore are breaking the $1 million barrier before they're even finished. The Beckton apartments to be built east from the Merriweather Street Wharf will start at $600,000. Top floors could double that. A deposit of $5,000 is required just to join the queue to look at one.
We've taken 67 of those. There's only 43 apartments on offer, but the $5,000 secures your interest in order from 1 through to 67 of having a chance to buy the unit that you like.
The Beckton development is to go alongside the construction of a luxury hotel, but they will all be below the height and width limits, so the sort of crowding that defines Sydney's waterfront should be avoided in Newcastle.
Well, the demand's here. This is the first and last opportunity to get an apartment right on the Newcastle Harbour foreshore. There won't be any further released any further east of here, closer to Nobbies.
David McElwain, NBN News.
The new law seems simple enough to screen new employees and volunteers to make sure people with a history of child sex offences don't get a chance to work with children in sporting groups. However, exercising the new laws means sporting clubs must work out just who is a prohibited person.
If they don't ask people if they're a prohibited person and something happens, then they can actually be fined.
While an independent body will screen potential employees free of charge, clubs are responsible for volunteers.
What committees really need to do is to sit down and develop a protocol so that they can define who a volunteer is and make a concerted effort to approach those people and seek the declarations.
Seminars are being held throughout the Hunter to help sporting bodies understand what their obligations are and the right way to implement the new policies.
Things like this, you really do need to make sure that that is protected, and the way to do it is to maybe isolate one person on the committee to whom the information goes to. Again, there are penalties under this Act and normal privacy laws if that information gets out.
The next seminar will be held in Singleton on Thursday night, but sporting groups can contact the Department of Sport and Recreation for more information. Jim Callanan, NBN News. You couldn't fault All Saints in the stands or on court. Dave Larkman was on fire in the opening exchanges and helped his side open a small lead. But John Paul College wasn't about to go down without a fight. The Coffs Harbour players chanced their arm in an effort to keep in the hunt. However, it was always going to be hard to down the defending champions. As the lead threatened to blow out late in the match, John Paul rallied, catching the Maitland side out on the fast break more than once. All Saints simply too strong in the end, wrapping up its second successive title in the division, winning 54-45.